And hey, everybody, welcome back to another amazing edition of the best darn show on the internet, the Over Sharon show. We have a guest today we're very excited about, but before we get into that, I'm going to read the quote. Sharon, the lovely Sharon, is going to pull a card for us, and then we're going to get going. So today's quote is from Nikola Tesla. I could only achieve success in my life through self-discipline, and I applied it until my wish and my will became one.
Yes.
Nikola Tesla.
That is beautiful. That's gorgeous.
Well, you said the best darn show on the internet. So I was going to say, we don't claim to be the best show. We just claim to be the best darn show on the internet. So we're not offending anybody,
That's right. Well, that's just our worldview. Everyone's got a different frame of mind and point of view.
True. That's true. So excited to have our guest on today, but I'm going to pull a card. And Dr. Moshe says he has this deck too.
The thought deck. Do you have an intention, or what's your intention when you draw the card?
It's probably usually just for the show,
Okay.
And usually we have lots of syncs that come up with the card. This is hilarious because I feel like this card keeps getting pulled. The 10 of Cups.
Oh,
okay. Wow. All right. Beautiful. I love the art in that deck.
It's very interesting art for sure.
Yeah. Cool. What does that tell you, Sharon?
Well, the 10 of Cups is a card that I tend to pull relatively regularly. It's a card that to me is kind of the completion of a cycle of happiness and joy and fulfillment in relationship, family, that type of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
I wonder if you keep pulling it because it's kind of like a recurrent dream. When you have this recurrent dream, then you need to resolve something to move on. Maybe that's what will come up today. We could resolve the 10 of Cups. Not that there's anything wrong with but that to move forward, so you don't keep drawing it onto the next thing.
Yeah. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, your thoughts?
Well, we always talk about, like you said, how 10s are completion, but also I think there is a real level of fulfillment there. And I know it's something that you were looking for in your life and in this podcast in general, because I think that we always cover topics. We are using the air with the ideas and the wands with the fire. But I think at the end of the day, our true intention is based on the cups and the emotion and what it feels, because we want everybody to kind of, everyone that listens to our show anyway, to see things maybe sometimes from a different point of view or through the eyes of the heart, through love. So
yeah, I was going to say love. Exactly. Totally. Yeah. Like an unconditional love for the realm, the people of the realm, the elements, everything in the realm.
Yes, but not in a new agey way. And I'm sure we'll get into that too. We're here to
sure. So without further ado, we have Dr. Moshe Daniel on today, and I found him through Topher's podcast, and he's been a guest a few times doing, talking about so many different things. It was just absolutely fascinating, all the things he's into, and he was just telling us that he was hauling this cowhide earlier from harvesting a cow or something. So he's into so many things, and I would like to get into them. But yeah, so usually we start by asking about childhood, spiritual journey moments, how you grew up and what brought you to your current cosmology. And, maybe what is your current cosmology and all that stuff.
Only that, right?
Yeah. And
But
that'll branch us off to so many different things, I'm sure.
I
All right, you
love
got
it.
2 minutes. Go. No.
Go. Okay. Yeah, I can see the timer. No pressure. Like, yeah, so Topher and I call the talks that when we have a talk, it's called coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
Coffee talk with Moshe and Tofi. Yeah, like my spiritual journey it was fun. It was a cool journey. It involved being sick a lot. That's part of how I grew. I was very sick. I was challenged by being injured a lot, lots of broken bones, internal bleeding. I had I had a lot of sickness, including myasthenia gravis, which was one of the defining moments, being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease 25 years ago. But the journey started when I was a little kid. I didn't know anything about chi or energy, no context for that, right? I grew up in Montreal and born in 1973. I started to feel chi flowing in my body, and I started to see light and sparks of light, flashes of light, and I could make the chi rush, and the light would augment, and I felt my internal organs pulsing. I could see and feel each of my internal organs. And I had no context for that whatsoever. So I thought I was like a magician. That's what I thought. And maybe it's true in this certain archetypal way, but not in the way I thought, because I read a lot of books that were literally about like casting spell magic and stuff like that. And then I read a book on ninjutsu, and in it they talked about ki. And this is the first time I ever read about anything energetic. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not a magician, I'm a ninja.
Yeah.
Like trying to identify with what I understood. Then I read, when I was 15, I read Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light. You ever get down with that book? You ever check that book out?
No.
It was a life changer, because she's ex-NASA scientist, whatever. That was one of her claims. But she was highly medical intuitive, and she saw everything, she drew everything, she described everything, and it really answered a lot of my questions. So I was like, oh, okay, so I'm a healer. There you go. And I don't need to label any of that stuff, because maybe it's a combination of all of it. But I just did this spontaneous sort of this sort of meditation where I'd make my chi flow, and it would build and build. And I had experiences of being out of body. I would be looking down at my body. I'd be in this golden realm. And when I was a really little kid, I had experiences of being in bed at night, kind of slightly wide awake. And this rectangular, I specifically remember the shape, white light opened up above me, and I got drawn into it, and then I wouldn't remember anything after that. So I never thought of this before until recently, but I thought, is that why was it rectangular? Was it like a spacecraft? I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it felt good. It felt like I was being drawn into the light. It was pure white light. It was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And one of the things that happened to me when I was a kid, when I would make my chi flow, I would see this symbol flashing. And I didn't know what the symbol was. And I had this burning curiosity. I wanted to know what the symbol was. So many, many years ago, I hired this channeler. I think her name was, oh man, I don't want to blank on her name. I want to honor her for the message she gave. I'm blanking out for now, but I actually published this in one of my books. Jalela. Her name was Jalela. I think that was her name. I don't remember if there was any other name. She told me that the symbol was the frequency of a lost star that I came from, and the star imploded. And so it was a star that imploded, and to maintain the vibration of a lost star, there was a soul grouping created. I was a part of that soul grouping, maintaining the vibration of this lost star. So I was like, cool. And I had two questions. I had, what is this symbol I see, and why do I have a big pit in my chest? I have this like kind of distinct pit in my chest. I used to get made fun of by the hockey guys, and I mean, it bothered me until a certain point when it didn't bother me anymore. But I have this like physical indentation. Medically, it's called pectoral excavatum, like a caved in chest, right? So I asked about that too, and the two were related, that actually carry the vibration of the lost star, the imploded star, in my chest. Like that's where it manifests, like as this trauma, soul trauma. And I didn't really know anything about what that meant beyond that. But since I've come to, I had in years later, like with this partially answered question, vibration of a lost star, imploded star, carrying it, a frequency, soul grouping. I was in Jerusalem, and I was in the King David Hotel, really cool place, nice place, and I heard voices through the door of these Christian people talking about Jesus, and I was like, I identified as being Jewish, and I still consider myself Jewish, but very universal. I'm not religious per se. I mean, I embrace many different walkways, including yoga and Taoism and Buddhism, and lots of beauty in this planet. But and Christ too. Like Christ too has been an immense guide. What do you call it? Like look up to, not idolize, not worship per se, but look up to for inspiration and guidance and stuff.
Like you were the big brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Or like a guru, but in the true sense of the word, what it's supposed to mean before it kind of got, changed.
Right, exactly. Like a bringer of light, a dispeller of darkness.
Which he called himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, Christ embodies like the pinnacle of what is possible for a human being. Like human being, like that's our temporary nature. We have this soul nature, but he brought that to the greatest degree. So very inspirational. So I knocked on their door. I went and knocked on the door, and we had this amazing talk, and they were so happy to meet a Jew that was open-minded enough to talk about Jesus with them, because they were getting a lot of doors slamming in their face, trying to bring the gospel to Jewish Israel, That's an interesting topic unto
right.
itself. A lot of pain there, a lot of beauty, a lot of unresolved trauma, it's painful. So they lent me this thing. It was the book of Revelation. And I never really read it. It was on audio tape. So I listened to it. I had the door. I was out on the balcony, and beautiful moon, stars shining down. And I heard something that I didn't know. I never made a connection. So what I was also told by Jalila was that the civilization has three tones, 4 that are 7 that are 24. And I didn't know what that meant whatsoever. So when I listened to the book basically, in the throne room in the causal plane, does that say anything to you? If I say the throne room in the causal plane, does that mean anything to you guys?
I mean, I think I can get what you're kind of saying, Brandon.
Yeah, okay.
Like the physical plane, we're kind of here to create and do things. So you're like in the main station, kind of like you're in control.
No, it's like basically, I talked a bit about it yesterday. I love this discussion. It's like in the 4 worlds of Kabbalah. So if we consider the physical world, the world of Asiya, the 4th world, the 3rd world is the astral plane. It's the world of Yetzirah. And then the 2nd world of Bria is the world where the Christ sits on the throne. And around the Christ are 24 elders chanting, "Holy, holy, holy is God, Lord of hosts," in total love and awe of Christ. And there's also 4 beasts of the apocalypse the lion, the man, the bull, and the eagle. Are you familiar with that at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I didn't know, again, I didn't know what this meant or anything, but I made another connection in realizing there's something about the imploded star and the symbol that I see that relates to the the seven archangels that are in the throne room and the 24 elders. And I don't know where that situates, but I think I have a relationship with the lost star. And I'll kind of accelerate the story because there's a lot of details. I wrote a whole book about it actually, which I haven't really published yet.
You haven't?
Kind of sitting on it. I'm not sure if it's a book to publish or just to work out for myself. I'm not sure yet, but I can tell you this. I worked out, I kept getting pieces, one piece after another. Like it was like it came about slowly and beautifully, deliciously. Like when these different pieces would come, I'd be on a cloud of like inspiration and joy. I was so happy. So one of the pieces came when I realized that so I was reading some guy's astrological website, and again, I published this, but I don't necessarily remember his name. Cedric, an astrologer named Cedric. And he wrote it exactly. He said that the lion, the bull, the man, and the eagle is actually a symbol of the Sphinx.
Wow.
That the Sphinx in Egypt, it has the face of a man, that's the human being, which the face of the man, the front body, the front paws of the bull, the rear paws and the tail of the lion. And there used to be incendiary boxes that they would light at night to symbolize the eagle. The eagle represents Scorpio. These basically are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. Okay, the lion is Leo, the bull is Taurus, the Aquarian child is the human being, the man, the child, and then the eagle is Scorpio. So there is the Sphinx. So there's something about the Sphinx. There's something about an imploded star. I don't know, but it's all coming together, and I'm very happy about all this stuff. So I then realized that, and this website also helped me very much, is that there is in the cosmos, in the stars, a Sphinx being, which is the centaur Sagittarius. So Sagittarius in the Coptic tradition, the Sagittarius is not just a man with a horse's body, lower body of the horse, like a centaur, but is actually a part lion, part man, and represents the Sphinx. And his arrow, in the constellation, points to the galactic heart center, which is at the 27th degree of Sagittarius. Are you familiar with the galactic heart center?
I've heard of this before, yeah. Go ahead, Sharon.
I heard you talking a little bit about it yesterday on the show you did. I didn't finish it, but I heard that part.
Oh, okay, cool. So the galactic heart center is like, astrology aside, astronomers and conventional scientists, I always go like this when I say scientists, because right. that term, it doesn't mean what it used to, at least not to me. And I could see what your reaction, not you guys either. So anyway, conventional science accepts that Sagittarius A at the 27th degree in the constellation of Sagittarius is actually, there's a black hole there. Ooh. And then the next connection came where I realized, what is a black hole? It is a star that imploded.
Yep.
So I went, okay, this is, I understand now. I carry a black hole in my chest. It has to do with this Sphinx, the lion, the bull, the four beasts of the apocalypse. In Kabbalah tradition, it's called the Maaseh Merkaba. It's the Merkaba vehicle created by these beings, right? And in that throne room sits the Christ, the pure embodiment. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
No, I'm just showing my little Merkaba. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Beautiful. Rose quartz. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So I that was probably one of the biggest, like, mind-blowing moments for me to feel, wow, okay, I'm understanding a little bit of the mystery of this frequency that I see, the flash and the imploded star. It has something to do with the galactic heart center. And yeah, so that's a big chunk of the story.
Okay, that's awesome. When you were talking about it, it made me think of the law of one. And I know yesterday you mentioned A Course in Miracles, which is also another text that Brandon and I have talked about. Not that we've fully read it or anything, but we've gleaned information from specifically Aaron Abke on YouTube, because he's done some nice videos about what, the law of one and A Course in Miracles are about.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the law of one, absolutely, 100%. I don't even know what they say, and I agree with that. Like, because I've talked about the law of one, and the law of one is, I'd love to hear your takes on it as well. It's simply that the one is repeated everywhere. The one is what is, and therefore everything that is based in that foundation. So that law of one is expressing itself in every single individual, like all created beings, and as the source of all things. Right. So yeah, do you see, like, how do you see that?
Yeah, I see it very similarly too, in that way. The thing that when you said that you came from a certain place and your star imploded or something like that, it sounded to me like whatever density you were at in the I guess call it planet you were on, or whatever you want to call it, whatever that planet was experiencing, you had to leave that place and come to experience and finish your 3D experience here, because for whatever reason that was done for that.
Exactly. I think so. Now, I think so, because the law of one, when we start talking about like physical places, we could get caught up in on the map. That's not the point, right?
Right.
And at the same time, what I've derived, or what I feel, is like, so in astrology, you guys know about astrology, you know a little bit of, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had a few astrologers on, and we both have kind of like a beginner's introductionary guide to to astrology, but we're pretty into symbolism and the tarot. So we kind of, we
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because there's like a universal language there between tarot, astrology, there's Kabbalah, there's alchemy. These are some of like the sort of like universal languages, right?
Yeah, we've learned a lot from like people like Michael Tessarion. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
No.
Oh, we gotta send you some videos. Yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, and one thing I really want to say quickly about the Law of One, there's actually a book called The Law of One that was channeled. I'll say it like you said, scientists, right?
Yeah.
People have all their opinions about channeling and stuff, but it was channeled in
the 80s. Course in Miracles was also channeled.
It was also channeled. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the Law of One, basically they contact this entity Ra, and he tells them that we are in this realm, if you will, where there's different densities of consciousness. And right now, all three of us are in this density where we're able to like the third density, we're able to have free will and kind of have like a physical experience, where in the other one's your energy. And there's 7, I guess, and you move up. And what I really like about it is the way they say it is you can move up to the next density through positive or through the negative. So it really dispels a lot of this victim narrative around, the they and the them and all this stuff. It's because they really kind of have a purpose, and it gets resolved at a higher level because everything comes together and has to harmonize, right? So that's one of the basic reasons we really like it. It's not like we believe everything they exactly say, but we kind of get through like an analogy, we get a really good picture of that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. If you're not familiar with it, it's pretty cool to check out. And they ask them a bunch of different questions. And one of them that I really like is they ask them, Well, what happens if you encounter one of these negative entity beings, one of these like demons or whatever? And
Yeah.
Rob basically says all you have to do is show them love and light, and they can't deal with it. And I know that kind of sounds new agey, but if you think about it like on a vibrational thing, it's like if you're having a really good day and somebody tries to mess with you or whatever it is, you just, hey man, what's going on? And and they just kind of move out of the way. They know they can't get any juice from you.
Yeah. Or they don't come around to begin with because they can't mess with your good vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've experienced that so much. I'm a wedding DJ by trade, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I've made a lot of changes internally since I've started. And now it's just amazing, the interactions that I have and how things go, even when things go wrong, it's crazy.
Good for you. Yeah. I've also found funny enough, we were talking about Christ, the name of Christ, Yeshua, or if you say Jesus Christ, if that's the name you like to say, is so powerful at dispelling the demonic. Like they just hightail it out of there.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, not this house, next, go. And also there's another name which I got from, it's one of the prayers in the regular prayer book of like Jewish people when they pray. It's like in the Amida, it's like one of the most basic prayers, but it's got a very, very high vibration. And it's one of the 72 names of God, according to James Hurtak from the Keys of Enoch. Do you know that one, Keys of Enoch?
No.
I've heard of it, I think, yeah. I just actually bought the Book of Enoch.
Well, that's a little different. I mean, probably the same being, let's say, or maybe they're just related by name. But yeah, the Book of Enoch, the Keys of Enoch was another sort of received book, but it's not exactly like channeled. Basically, Dr. James Hurtak was how the story goes. Again, I tend to believe these things. Was studying he's a linguist, and he was studying in his library, and he was visited by Enoch, and Enoch, like the ninth descendant, I think it's the ninth descendant of Adam. And Enoch is one of the few biblical beings who left earth in his body. He ascended in his body. So he didn't die. And, Christ is another. And so I think Elijah. Yeah. So yeah. So then he was brought up to Metatron, El Shaddai, like a very, very high level being. And he was shown all these things at a very, very high level of intelligence, like hard to fathom. And it was all encoded in his mind. Then he came back down and he wrote it all. And it was like prophetic. It's a really cool book. It's very dense, very hard to understand, like A Course in Miracles, but even more like scientific-y and like weird languagey, cool book. So why did I tell you all of this? What was I talking about before?
Dr. James Hurtak, the Keys of Enoch.
Yeah, I know. But what was I trying to tell you about that? I forget.
It'll come back to us. What we could do? We could give a shout out to the chat while you're recovering, because we're such professionals here. What's going on, Dell?
Yeah, go for it.
That's actually Sharon's man. So good to see you. Trisha, what's up? Trisha, how you doing? Joe's here all the way from Germany. He's from New York, joined the army, met a woman, stayed in Germany. What's up, Joe? He's been on the show a bunch of times. We love him so much. I think Zerlath was in here earlier, maybe.
Yeah, he was. I think Dr. Moshe remembered.
I did.
You went like that.
Thanks for that segue. Are you done like shouting out, or
one more? Spoons? What's going on, Spoons? She's awesome. Another good friend
and
of ours.
Trisha.
And Robo Honky, of course, my favorite YouTube handle ever, Robo Honky.
Robo Honky, it's a good handle. Okay, so I remember what I was getting at. So so Dr. Hurtak, I was studying his stuff for a while, and one of the names that they teach to banish darkness is Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot. You know this prayer? This holy, holy, holy is God, Lord of hosts. So I've done the name of Christ and I've done this name, and they're gone. I've encountered very clear manifestations of demonic activity, and the name of Yeshua, the name Jesus, and Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot banishes them. Now, interestingly, before the throne room, the four beasts of the apocalypse sit around the throne, and the 24 elders chant in
Kadosh,
glory
Kadosh.
of God, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavaot. So powerful, powerful names that you will just feel that, like it just clears. And even if you're going through your own darkness, you can just you can invoke that. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's.
Oh yeah, and there was one I wanted to just share with you in my story. So what I have concluded is so there's the earth. Here we are. We're in this place on earth where we experience a fallen state of consciousness, if you will. We easily identify with the physical body. We forget our angelic soul nature.
Yeah.
We are easily swayed by illusion and by desire, and it's all good, right? This is actually intended. I'm not of a like, oh, we fell and we're sinners. I'm not really in that.
I'm not either.
Okay. Yeah, good.
I don't like it.
Good. Yeah, I really feel like this was intended. It's a kind of a game, and that is not foreign to Kabbalistic thinking. This is a game of life. It's very like yogic too, like it's a dance, right? And so that oneness where we are right now, it imploded. And we live on the other side. We live on the black side of the black hole. Because the light side is when you go through the black hole, you get to this other dimensional reality where there's a unified field, and the sexual energies are not polarized and opposite, but are unified as one. And that to me is really the embodiment of Christ, is really the child inside of us, where there's unification. And that is the dimensional reality of the causal plane, which I've come to understand is called many things: scalar waves, unified field, 0 point. I'm sure you've heard some of these terms before, right?
Yeah. I'm reading Eileen McCusick's book called Electric Body, Electric Health. And she talks about how some of all these words are used kind of interchangeably for kind of the same thing. And I think she's bringing ether into the subject because it's been a term long forgotten and demonized, dare I say, back when Einstein first himself thought it was a great thing. It was awesome. And then he himself demonized it and said, no, that doesn't work. But then he came back, and after that, everyone had already demonized the word ether. And so it didn't come back into use. So, but it's starting to come back into use.
Yes. Beautiful. Now, I'm not sure, like the etheric, when somebody says the etheric, sometimes the terms are confusing.
Right.
Because I think that the etheric can refer to that realm in the causal plane where the Christ sits on the throne, and it's oneness, it's pure stillness, and it's the heaven of heaven. So when we die here, we go to heaven. That's the astral, and it's like glorious and it's heavenly. People have near-death experiences, and they come back, they tell of this heaven. Mm-hmm. But then there is a relative heaven to that heaven too. That's the causal plane, is the heaven of heaven.
Nice.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
And there's a heaven of heaven of heaven as well.
Yeah, it's like the dream within the dream within the dream within.
Yeah.
Like the movie Inception.
Inception, exactly. So I think that, I really think that the trauma of coming here, because it's traumatic, it's painful coming to planet Earth. There is this sort of resonance of implosion, like this destruction. Atlantis was destroyed. There's an analogy here with the fall of Atlantis as well, where the Atlantean beings were immortal. They were symbolic of living in the Garden of Eden, masculine and feminine balanced as one, and then kind of genderless, which is interesting because there's this sort of like smoke and mirrors come around gender happening very strong on the planet. Yeah. And that's because I think we're coming back into a time where it is prophesied in the book of Matthew. I think it's Matthew 17:21. I always get that wrong, but you Bible geeks will get that. that when the Christ will return, it will be as the days of Noah. So the days of Noah, you know, it has to do, there's this thing that happened with Noah or before the flood, where they were living hundreds of years. Noah was 600 and something years old when he died. Adam lived till 900 and something. They were immortal until they ate from the tree of knowledge, and then they fell in reality, and then there was this change of dimensional reality. And so we carry this wound inside of us of where we've come from, and it's meant to be, right? Again, the whole meant to be thing. But this wound is now hopefully going to be resolving through us. I mean, consciousness is really accelerating very fast.
Yeah.
Healing, right?
Yes. Yes. I've had a friend send me a couple of links of like signs that you're, you know, I guess your consciousness is evolving or expanding or whatever, however you want to word it. Signs that these things are happening, and just things that happen to you that are just indicative of those changes, and to, you know, just be okay with it, because yeah, it's sometimes it's tough and you'll experience a lot of weird things, but just keep the faith and keep going.
The faith. And I would recommend, you know, take it all in stride, acknowledge it, accept it, but don't get fixated on it.
Right.
Like this stuff that I'm sharing with you, it's just stuff. It's mind stuff. It's not what it's all about. It's just it's a stepping stone to something else, which is then a stepping stone to something else, and a deepening. And like getting fixated on anything, even if it's like the greatest truth, is an untruth.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. We like go. I was going to say, we like to say that you can't really describe what truth is. You can just describe what it's not really. And it's better to kind of just let go of things and see what happens when you keep letting go.
Yes.
You know, I think you would really enjoy the Over Sharon show. Dr. Moshe, you should check out the episode we did with your friend Chris Gardner. It was a 2-parter because we just talked for like 3 hours. So
yeah, going.
Because what you're saying, a lot of what you're saying jives with what we talk about. And sometimes people just use different words. You know, they don't understand it. I also want to let you know that I'm a big fan and a big student of the Bhagavad Gita. I will go hardcore into that. So I'm into a lot of these ideas of like, you know, just the way of kind of pointing at it. It's like they say about a spiritual teacher, right? The spiritual teacher's finger is pointing to the moon. Make sure you don't get focused on the finger. You know, it's all
yes.
There's all different ways to describe this whole thing that we're going through.
Yeah,
that's great. I love that. Yes. I absolutely agree. And kind of like a lot of suffering in my life from being in the knowing too much. You know, like knowing this is the truth, and then being in much more joy and flux and movement with being less in the knowing, more in a place of unknowing, which I've discovered, or I learned from one of my cousins, actually, Shalom. He's an amazing person. He's a rabbi. He's like, that's what activates the crown chakra, you know?
Wow.
Is not knowing.
Oh, wow.
It's literally being receptive to receiving the truth, rather than like when we know, we think we know, so we don't receive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
mean,
I love that.
You know, like Christ says, you should be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. Same kind of thing, you know?
Exactly. And, you know, I know you were talking about Thoth before, and, you know, your Thoth deck, and Hermes was Thoth, and a Hermetic principle is everything is a half truth.
Yes.
So what we just said about not knowing is also a half truth, because we also have to embrace the other part of that truth, which is sometimes you have to downright stick to your guns and really stand up for what you believe in and embody the truth.
100%. That's what we always say. Well, we say that you have the right to self-defense. You know, we're not new agers here. We say that if somebody does trespass against you, and you have to use even up to deadly force, we just tell you that don't do it in a rage, violent thing. Just do it as, you know, sorry that this happened and I had to do this. I'm sure you were a great guy. Maybe you just got hooked on crack because your mom was a hooker, you know, and you're trying to kill
Don't
him.
hate the guy as you shoot him, basically.
Exactly.
Love the guy as you shoot him.
Yeah.
Like lovingly shoot him.
To protect your own life.
Protect your own life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. No, so one of the laws of one aspect that I interpret in the law of one is that there's one law also, right? It's love.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you look at love, there's different nuances to it. One of it is the right to exist, right? Everybody has the right to exist.
Yes.
And because they have the right to exist, they have the right to have a sovereign experience of themselves. They get to decide how they want to be, which also then translates into nobody has any right to impose their will on another unless they have an agreement there, right? There's a karmic agreement. It's like, okay, dominate me, or okay, take me over. Okay. And so there is some right there, even though there's still a violation, there's some kind of codependent, you be the dominator, I'll be the dominated, right?
It's really a choice. And that's the whole thing where people talk about, the government, they're so tyrannical. It's like, well, you're making a choice every day to do this, whatever it is. Or even if you're in somebody, like, you find sometimes that someone's in an abusive relationship, but it's like, they're choosing to stay there. And again, not all cases, I get it. People get kidnapped. Like, I've had some crazy things happen just even in my circle of people that I know. So I'm not making judgments, but it's the same thing. It's kind of like a victim versus victor frame of mind, but continue.
Right. Yeah. More than anything, this whole pandemic thing has taught me, I was very aware of all these things, but it went to the nth degree more, just awareness, right? Like conspiracy theories, like I was on to all of that, but it just became so much more clear. But one thing that became so clear to me is that this is all about choice. And I had the privilege of speaking with Christiane Northrup. I really deeply love and admire that woman. She's I think she wrote the book Woman's Body, Woman's Wisdom, and a whole bunch of other books. She's a medical doctor who's anti-V, right? Very, very knowledgeable and spiritual. So we were talking about this very thing, and I brought up the metaphor. We were talking about vampires. What's interesting about a vampire is a vampire cannot come into your house unless you invite it in. Like, this is part of one of the, right?
Energetically.
You invite it in. Otherwise, if it goes into your house against your will, it's going to just like start bleeding out of its eyes and it has to go back out. You have to invite the vampire in. And that's such a beautiful metaphor for our day and age, because it's all about consent. And thank God, so far, I've never had anybody use their will against mine in that regard, because I don't know why this happens for some people, but they can say, no, I do not consent to this, and they could still have their wishes and their will violated. But I think in general, this whole experience has been really largely about consent, tacit agreement, right? Consent, sovereignty. Go ahead, Brandon. Yeah.
I was just going to say consent, and also people agreeing to take this term that we coined here in the Over Sharon show, the experimental medical serum. They took it just so they could go see their favorite baseball team, or, all their like lollies and fancies, or whatever it is, same thing. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And you know what? Different people had different levels of pressure. Some people they have big fear around money, around their job. They're going to lose their job. That was their pressure point. Some people was travel, like they're going stir crazy because they're not restful in themselves. There is always an issue, and the issue is always external, and it's a reflection of the wound itself. But I do understand that some people did feel very pressured. I myself almost caved when they offered a free Krispy Kreme donut every day for a year. They almost got me there.
I did cave. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. My wife and I, we were in Canada, and we were watching my daughter at the time, 5 years old in the park, a lot of other families, kids playing. And these two teenagers came up to us and said, oh, I don't know if you knew, but we just opened up a clinic and we're offering the experimental medical serum, as you call it. And they were kids. They were 15 years old, maybe. And they said, and we have ice cream for the kids there. So like for me, that's like pure evil. You got these little kids, these little sweet, innocent kids walking around innocently saying, here, come have some ice cream and do your good for humanity. And we looked at each other and we said, we got to get the hell out of here. Like that was just really bad. Canada's really stooped to some horrible lows. And parts of America, but America still has strongholds, some good strongholds. God willing, they maintain, they don't cave.
So you grew up in Montreal, you said, and I have some questions for you. Like, first of all, like if you grew up very like religiously Jewish and stuff like that, and also, did you move? I take it you moved because you said you got to get out of here. So where did you move to? And you don't have to be specific.
Yeah, Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee. Our friend Spoons in the chat is in Tennessee. She's in Chattanooga.
Chattanooga, cool. We consider Chattanooga a very cool community. For my liking, too much traffic. I don't like traffic.
Yeah.
Love Tennessee. I feel like this is definitely much more my home than Montreal ever was. The people, they're good people here. Like I'm amazed at how real and just naturally kind the people are here. Not everybody, but
I've heard that too.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a beautiful thing. I have tears coming down my cheeks every once in a while. I'm meeting someone. I'm like, thank you, God. Like good, real people, like with real life skills and connected to the earth and just naturally, versus some of the stuff that you see. I hate to focus in on it like this. Actually, I don't hate to focus in. That's a misnomer. I like to focus in on it. The left tends to have gone nuts, so that there's this facade of representing goodness and care and kindness, but then there's no heart. There's no real care there. There's this like reversal of racism. There's this, like you pretend to care about people, then you don't even care about the person that's right in front of you because they don't look the way you think they should look. It's so ridiculous. And I was always like a hippie kind of lefty, always, up until what happened like 3-4 years ago. And it's not about the left and the right. I get that. But the places that are politically heavy in the left are like such dissonance for my person right now, for my being, very dissonant. And conservatism, Christian values, even if I don't believe in anything, in all of them, a belief in something is so vital today. So you might be restricted by your Christian beliefs or your Jewish beliefs or your whatever beliefs we're talking religiously, but to believe in something is so vital because of how prevalent the sort of left's push and the global agenda towards atheism, towards a belief in nothing but scientism or what have you.
Nothing happens when we die. Blip, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I don't know where you guys stand with this. We're just on this ball spinning in space, careening aimlessly at 90 million miles an hour.
And we evolved from
the
Big Bang happened, and then we evolved from pond scum.
Yep. That too. I
was going to say we're realm earthers. So we basically believe that It's kind of like simulation theory, except we don't believe there's bodies outside of this thing. We just think it's some kind of spiritual realm, and we're energy having a physical experience. We're tricked into it, which allows us to have free will. It allows us to experience anything we want to experience. And we always say, you know, the most evil person, whoever he is, you don't have to hate him or get mad about it. You just have to realize you can empathize, but you don't have to agree with what they're doing. You know, compassion is not consent. So that's pretty much what we are. We say that everything else is materialism, globe earth, even flat earth, if there's a hard dome, especially simulation theory, it's all materialism. You know? Yeah,
that's really cool. Actually, I'm in a place of, I don't know.
Oh yeah, we don't
know either, but that's
I don't know, like I watch videos and I'm like, oh, I like that. And I think about it for a minute, like, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that really resonates with me.
Right.
What I like, there's some things that I could say I do know because I experience them directly in my being. Like, so I can have some knowing about that, at least for now. That might change. But the whole simulation thing, or not that. What I really identify strongly with, and I actually published this in my book called The Last Four Books of Moses, Book 1, The Letting Go of Free Will. And I basically published this knowing. I teach about this in my course, Holistic Counseling, in the first part. So our brains are made to be very special holders of consciousness. So if you've studied psychology, or even if you haven't, there's something that psychology teaches us, that if I'm looking out at the field of vision, what's on the right of the field of vision is imaged in my brain on the left, right? You know that, like, it crosses, the brain crosses everything over.
Yeah.
Okay. And not only does it cross it over, it also turns it upside down. So what I see over there, the lens of the eye, or then the brain, it turns it upside down. So I'm seeing everything upside down and backwards, or opposite, right? Now, so what that means is that everything I see, or I think I see, the brain is recreating it. Now, add to that awareness the same thing about senses. So if I rub my right hand, first of all, I'm seeing it over there, but my brain is putting it over there, and so is my sensory nervous system. The brain is also sensing it over on the other side. So everything that I feel with my senses and see with my senses is being totally inverted and turned upside down and recreated by the brain, so that I experience myself as within this body reality. It traps consciousness into the center of this recreation of this sensory experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
jives right with what we say a lot, you know, that I love that.
Yeah. And that's why I brought it up, because I felt like that, you know, how these conversations go, it like nudged me into, that sounds like this. And okay, then, you know, this is how we kind of evolve in our conversations. But I geek out about that. It's amazing, because ultimately, and Topher and I talk about this a lot, and you know, Bhagavad Gita, yogic philosophy, the Jnana yoga, that is the consciousness yoga. So I come from, I train in Kriya Yoga, changed my life. I'm eternally grateful for what I learned. And I was kind of stalled in my spiritual growth up until, I got really sick again about 8 years ago. And then I was reduced enough in my egoic pride to be open to yoga, because I was like, I'm Jewish. That's yoga. That's for those people. But man, have I loved it. And what I learned from it, I also talked with Topher about this, is like, we are pure consciousness. And this thing that is called Moshe, that is talking and looking around and smelling and eating and digesting, all the stuff that Moshe does, I experience Moshe as an object of my experience. And because I experience Moshe as an object. Like I'm literally able to look at myself down, but even if I close my eyes, my sense of self, I perceive it in front of me. Like when I think, well, where am I? I'm here. Oh, that's there I am. I can point at myself. If I can point at myself, I am not that thing I'm pointing at. This to me is one of the most powerful truths because it points to a deeper thing that's beyond all the manifest set parts of ourselves. And it's that truth, it's that pure consciousness, the I am, the witness. I was missing, by the way, in my understanding of Kabbalah and the whole world creation. That's what a big piece I was missing. But it's truly heavenly to experience the self from that understanding, from that awareness. It's just very liberating. Have you done that? Have you had?
Yeah.
Go, Brandon, you go.
Well, I definitely under the influence of psychedelics, allegedly,
Right.
but I have I got to a point where I was meditating a lot, and of course, I don't suggest it for everybody, and everyone has their own path, but it helped me severely, helped me a bunch. But I got to a point where I was doing it a lot, and I kind of had those feelings. It's interesting to ponder that because what like Ram Dass said, who's minding the store? Like I don't know if you're familiar with Ram Dass.
A little bit. Like I watched, isn't he the gentleman that had like a stroke and there was like a YouTube video, a documentary about him?
Yeah, but he was also a Harvard professor in the 60s who got kicked out. He was a professor of psychology. He got kicked out because of psychedelics and stuff.
Oh yeah.
He went to India, followed this guru, all this stuff. So he was kind of in the new age a little bit, but if you just listen to what he says, it's pretty good. And he'd said that he had an experience when he was on LSD and he was about to freak out, and then he goes, wait a minute, like, but who's minding the store? Like, who's the one who's going to freak out if I'm watching myself do this, and it just kind of blew his whole mind. So,
and then he probably felt at peace, like he let go. Yeah, that's one of my friends that has been very instrumental in helping me wrap my head around Advaita Vedanta, so the non-dualism, right, teachings. Because I didn't formally train, but he did formally train in India. He's an American, but he's lived all over the world. His name is Eric Laporte. He also has written some books on alchemy that I've edited and I wrote an intro to and stuff. He always said that, like, regardless of what the ego comes up with, the question is, yeah, but who feels that fear? Or who feels that anger? Who's feeling that frustration? So I consulted with him about this thing I was having a lot. It was this freak out. Like I call it my freak out, where I would get to this place where I started to experience myself as expanding into the one, and very, very uncomfortable feeling, totally terrifying for me. And he would ask me, okay, yeah, but who is terrified? And it's the object self. It's the self
ego,
that you
the
can
egoic
experience, right?
Would you say it's the ego?
Yes, of course it's the ego. The ego is terrified of merging into that place because it has no control, and the ego is generally based in the mind and beliefs and former relationships with the past, and we're going in that place. It's completely unknown. It's untethered to anything, and there's no control. So of course the ego is having a freak out. So he does that same thing. Like what was Ram Dass's thing? Who's driving the car?
Store?
Who's running the store?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was Jewish, so he's like, the Jewish part of me. He's like, yeah, but who's minding the store?
Love it. I didn't realize he was Jewish, but those Jews, man, they sneak in wherever they are, like they get in there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you earlier if you think the black hole in your heart has to do with the fact that you're Jewish.
I do, actually. I think it has something to do with it. I think it has a universal slant too. So it's not like just for the Jewish club or anything. No.
Yeah.
But it has to do with some resolution of karma, of Jewish karma.
Mm.
I'm pretty clear about that because I feel deeply the karma of the Jewish people, like deeply, 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 and it's very painful. There's a lot of beauty in it as well, and I think it's a beautiful thing too. But there's a tremendous amount of pain, and there's some unresolved, still like waiting all these years, waiting for Godot, waiting for Godot. Oh, the Messiah's coming. Oh, that's okay. It won't be long. Here comes the Messiah.
Well,
but after thousands of years of waiting for the Messiah, that's painful. These things there's a lot of painful stuff. Plus with Christ, with Yeshua, the main body of Jewry, of Jewish people in the world, has not acknowledged Yeshua as the Messiah, as the King of Kings. That's a problem. That's a painful problem. When so you asked me like how I grew up Jewish. So I grew up like, Orthodox. My grandfather was a religious Jew, but not ultra Orthodox. Like, with the hat, the black hat and stuff. Like he looked like a modern person, but he wore tzitzits underneath his clothes. Like he was religious. He was kosher. He kept the Sabbath. He kept a lot of the laws, but he wasn't ultra Orthodox. My dad, not so much, and me even less so, like with the religious stuff, but still very identifying with this purpose of like, ultimately what I think it really means to be a Jew is to love God with all your heart and soul, and basically aspire to have total communion with God and to make the world a better place. Like that I also feel is part of the creed. And that could mean, that could mean just making yourself a better place. Like,
well,
when you make yourself a better place, you naturally go and you impart that onto the world. It could be as simple.
I think that's what Yeshua's main message was: love God, love people. And how can you love people if you don't love yourself first? So the love God part is the love yourself part.
Yeah.
Like, know thyself.
Yes.
Love thyself first.
Yes.
Yeah. Because how can you love your neighbor as yourself if you can't first love yourself? Like,
exactly. It's a mathematical impossibility. It's an equation. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's the basis of the foundation. Exactly what you're saying. And I believe, there's this sort of interesting, I don't know if you're familiar with the camp, the Jesus camp versus Paul camp. Have you ever heard that? Jesus versus Paul?
I did that rabbit hole like 3 years ago. I started on that rabbit hole and I exited that rabbit hole like a year or two ago.
Yeah. So I've gone into that rabbit hole, and I have to say, I'm all in the Yeshua camp, except I really like some of the things that Paul says.
Right. And then that's the thing, is like, we don't have to demonize Paul. Like,
no.
There's a lot of good stuff that he said. And I think of it more as like, these texts were written, right? And there's a lot of meaning. There's a lot of allegory. There's a lot of metaphor. There's a lot of that, right? And they can be interpreted in so many different ways. Like, you can interpret it in the legal way. Like, that's why they use it in the courts and all that stuff. You can interpret it in like allegory, like astrotheological way. You can interpret it in so many different ways. So it's like, you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It just is what it is. But those texts also could have been manipulated, because like, the whole like Romans the whole like Romans 13 where Paul's like, I think it's Romans 13 where Paul tells you to like, like pay your stuff to Rome and all that stuff. It's like, who wrote that?
Exactly. Well, maybe Rome. I don't know.
Maybe the Catholic Church. I don't know.
Exactly. Taking the Bible, taking the written form of any book is problematic, because and I don't know if you ever read the Essene Gospel of Peace, where it's like, through the Essenes, Christ went and studied and learned with them in the desert. They were people in the desert. They're sort of outside the box. But anyway, he says that, the scripture is dead. but the law is life. It's a living God for living people, and living in nature and in the spirit of the air and the spirit of water and all this stuff. So he gave a spiel about that in the Essene Gospel of Peace. And I agree with that. And I also agree, like, one of the pains for me is that I know, like, the author of the Only Planet of Choice, she said that she thought it was a reincarnation of Moshe Ben Maimon, who's known as Maimonides. He's a big rabbi in the Jewish faith. So she says she's 100% clear about that. For me, I can see some of that because I'm like a naturopathic doctor and I have some resonance with it. But, you know, I know that I've been involved karmically in digging in the law in a way which I consider now not so holy anymore. And I have a debate I have a dear friend, who is an ultra-Orthodox Jew, but she's deeply, deeply loves and follows Christ, like, as her Mashiach, as her savior.
Would she consider herself a Messianic Jew then?
I don't know if she would use that term. She's ultra-Orthodox Jewish, and she believes that, you know, she doesn't have to use that term because it's in the Torah. Like, Christ is in the Torah. It's like, you don't have to say, first of all, many people have said to me, oh, so you're a Christian because you believe in Christ. I'm like, yeah, but I'm Jewish. Like, it's a weird thing, right?
I'm like, you know, Jesus, you guys.
Yeah. I just think that Judaism is completely packaged to completely accept Christ. Like, the writings are there, but it is a little bit hidden. And that's for a reason. You know, it's not like right in your face, but it's there when you look for it.
Right.
So she's big into the whole thing, like, keep the law. And what Christ says in the Sermon on the Mount, I came not to change one iota of the law, but I came to fulfill the law. And that's very easy to interpret one of many ways, but I interpret it in what Paul says is that Christ came, and the Jews were heavily burdened by all this legal system of like 613 commandments in the Torah. 248 are positive, 365 are negative. Don't do these.
They itemized them.
Yeah. Like, if everything is, if God is love and the law of one is love, then the one law should be love. Exactly. And all those other things are a distraction.
Yes.
So we have those who keep the faith, if you will, tied into this ancient way of keeping the law of Moses. And I think Christ came to redeem that, to basically fulfill that and say, okay, that was cool. It got us to where we did. We needed that. We said Na'aseh and Nishma. We said, we have heard and we will obey. Actually, it's we will obey and then we'll hear. It's like taking on faith. Anyway, that's just a little geeky thing. But it's so burdensome, and not just burdensome. This is what I really write about in my book, the letting go of free will, about the law, is that it separates you from the law of one, which lives inside. It's a living law that informs your every move.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you say God needs you to follow this and this and this so you could be a good person, you identify so deeply separated from your core essence.
Oh, yeah.
That's painful. That's really painful. And what's also been very painful for me is growing up, I was guns blazing, full on, trying to get through to my religious Jewish friends. And we would have lots of great talks, but they wouldn't bend because they're very devoted to that belief system, to that way of thinking.
Right.
And I've lost dear friends over dropping the J bomb, this bomb. Admittedly, I think maybe that wasn't the wisest thing for me to do because I love them and I could have been a little more discerning that they couldn't handle that.
Right.
I dropped the J bomb, and that just blows all shit up in Jewish spaces. Like, That's the last thing you want to talk about, but it's really the first thing you should talk about. And it's
And when
interesting.
you say the J-bomb, you mean Jesus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dropped the J-bomb a couple of times in ways that did not end well for that gathering. For my relationship with people I loved, for my teaching with groups that really respected me as a teacher until I said that, et cetera, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really think that the law is fulfilled. I think there's one law, it's love. And I think it has those subtle nuances. And if you get all like nitpicky, if you get a serious spiritual hard on for following all the nuances of the Torah, by all means, like it's not a bad thing that you do that.
Right.
But if you believe that that's the only thing that you should do to redeem yourself, I think that's misguided. I really think that's misguided.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something you said about like you like dropping the J-bomb and everything. Like to me, like what I've had to learn myself in doing things kind of like that is that you have like loving people as you love yourself is like, you also have to give them that free will, right?
Right.
To like make their own whatever's like that they're going to do.
Right.
And not impose your thoughts on them. And you know what I'm saying? I have all these thoughts in my head that I can't like get out.
No, I understand what you're saying. I understand your expression. And I've been guilty of imposing thoughts, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
I was a young guy. I thought, I found something really good and I wanted people to benefit from it. And that's
right.
the innocent side of it.
Right.
It's still ultimately egoic, and you're right. We have to honor people where they are. And it's painful to see people so misled in their way and not seeing the light. So I've been there, done that. So I don't impose anymore, but I do like to express. I do like to communicate. So to find the balance between communicating but non-imposing, it's a balance that can be met, but it's a subtle balance.
Yeah, yeah. And to me, I think about it as because if you start getting into like almost like a debate energy, then I think that's what brings on the like breaks, and the like.
But Jews love to debate. It's
right,
like the debate kings or queens.
Right. So if you, this is just for anyone, but like if you bring it up in the spirit of just chit chat, like, have you ever thought about this? And then you just kind of get a feel. And if they're just all of a sudden like, oh, that's ridiculous, then you just know, oh yeah, moving on. Oh, like what's the weather today?
Right. Absolutely. You don't necessarily want to push against the wall.
Yeah.
I actually not too many years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I was like having this really extended conversation with this very Orthodox Jew. It was New Year's Eve. So we of course got together because that's what Jews do on New Year's Eve, because we
on the Jewish New Year's
Eve? No, it's the
regular
Goyish, like the
Goy New
Year's. And we talked for hours, and he was very he was listening to what I had to say. And then I had a choice. I could talk or I could just forget it, not say anything. But I decided to mention like about Yeshua and stuff like that. And he said, oh, that's where you're coming from. And he was able to, by the one wave of his hand, dismiss everything that I'd said in the delusion of Yeshua, right? In this thing. So, I mean, that was
crazy is that like he was following and then to just hear that word and be completely dismiss everything you just said, like that is, wow.
That gave him the right, that gave him an easy out for all these things. Like I was challenging his reality a lot. But then it was like, oh, that's where you're coming from. Okay, so bye-bye.
It reminds me of like, oh, you like football? Me too. Oh, isn't great? You talk about it, and then you're like, oh, wait. You're a Dallas Cowboys fan? Fuck you, you asshole. Get out of here. It's like this.
Yeah.
The Cowboys suck.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. That's true for this too. One thing that's hard for me to see is, it's not uncommon for there to be big conspiracy theories that involve the Jews like owning and running the whole world, running the whole global agenda show, right? And I think there are plenty of Jews involved, just as there are Christians involved, and different families. Some are Jewish, some are Christian, some are Jesuit,
Italian.
some are, what's that?
I said Italian.
Italian, right? There you go.
Some they'll just call themselves whatever they have to call themselves to get people to follow them. You know what I mean? Like that's what people don't understand. It's just like a kind of person, who doesn't mind screwing people over. Right.
But I don't know if you've seen, but I've seen lots and lots of like very heavily, it looks like it's well researched, but if you know a lot of the things that they're talking about, it's not very well researched. It's full of shit. But like that, pin it all on the Jews,
Yeah. Oh, like, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I like to tell a story because I find it so hilarious. There was this woman, and she looked to me like she was kind of far left. She looked like she probably was LGBT something. I'm not sure. No judgment of that. But the reason why I say that is because it gives an interesting context to the story. So I was talking with her and another person. We were smoking CBD bud. I don't know what you're smoking there, Brandon. It looks pretty cool. Be fun to pass it around.
Yeah, I got actually, quick side note, I get organic tobacco leaves because I used to smoke blunts, which is like you take a cigar leaf and put weed in it or marijuana. But I transitioned, and let me tell you, it's amazing. Just the regular tobacco, and then sometimes I'll throw a little bit of cannabis in there. But yeah, it's a good mix.
Nice. Well, it'd be nice to have a toke with you. I couldn't do any weed though, because then I would just be like, you'd be like, Dr. Moshe, are you there? And I'd be like, huh? Well, oh yeah, having a conversation.
I was just in the heaven of heavens, guys.
Yeah, I was in the heaven, exactly. And
the third one.
I have like this fantasy of being like on Joe Rogan and we're getting high together, but it's not a very realistic fantasy. I would just be like totally incoherent, or it's painful to try to stay in a very left brainy kind of conversation.
Oh yes, it's
difficult. I find it difficult. So, what was I talking about before? Oh yeah, so I was smoking a CBD joint with this woman. She was so grateful for it, and this man, and he goes, "What's your name?" And I said, Moshe, and he said, Is that? It's like he didn't want to say it. He's like a dirty word. And I said, "That's Jewish." He goes, "Oh yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I thought." So he was totally innocent with it, coming from a good place. And she said, "Oh, global domination." That's what she said in response to me saying I was Jewish. So I find it funny on so many levels because of how strenuously anti-racist the left is and that community, but to feel so at liberty to denounce a whole people as being like global domination.
Right. It's so hypocritical, right? It's like, don't judge me for being XYZ, but you guys are oppressors XYZ.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So Jews don't get to partake of the hierarchy of the oppressed. We don't get to partake of it because we are the oppressors. And that I find really rich. Like, that's just so, the whole, like, I'm sure you guys have brushed up against the absolute irrationality of the far left, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's irrational, it's illogical. And that's another one of the pieces. Like, Jews, at least we should have some rung on the hierarchy of suffering. We've gone through a little bit there. And there've been Jews who have capitalized on other people's suffering, and that's terrible. But it's not like the whole Jewish people are conspiring. It's like we don't go to like afternoon school and then we're brought in the basement and we're instructed on the plan,
Oh,
Here's
wait, you're not? Oh man, that just ruins the rest of the questions I had for you then.
Well, ask them anyway in light of me pretending I know.
The way that I like to look at it is, I was kind of educated to this point of view by the Dune novel series. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they talk about democracy and how the democracy always needs a scapegoat, basically. So you always need somebody to put on a pedestal and then somebody to put in the pit. And I feel like this idea of whatever the Jewish people are, they go from the pit to the pedestal to the pit to the pedestal, and it's like, they're just people, man, just treat them like you'd want to be treated and you'll be fine. Don't worship them or don't demonize them and you'll be
right.
just,
Well, what's interesting, if you psychologically analyze some of the people that are like the raving anti-Semites or the raving, Jews are doing all this and all that to the world, they're actually really, really putting a lot of power in the Jewish people.
That's exactly.
Well, and that's an egregore. It makes it so, right?
It makes it so, exactly. Like, oh, and then the Jews left that country only to infiltrate to the highest level the next country and completely devastate that country and turn the economy upside down. And a little ragtag bunch of people that leave one country by screwing it over, and then they go to the next country and they screw that one over, and then they go to the next and they screw that one over. This is the narrative. And I'm like, wow, Jews are really powerful, capable of tremendous change. And
somebody got working on next. No,
yeah. Well,
what's the next
trying to get you to slip up?
Look, I'll let you in on the secrets, but you have to make sure you're circumcised and you've got to denounce. No, I don't want to say that. That's terrible. When a Christian becomes Jewish, when they convert, they're supposed to denounce Christ.
Oh, wow.
When my wife and I she wanted to convert. It was actually, she wanted to, like, I didn't put any pressure on her. I secretly in the back of my mind wanted that, but I didn't pressure her. And we went to many different camps of conversion, and a lot of the more serious ones, like conservative and Orthodox, they require a declaration of denunciation.
Oh, wow.
And to me, that's like a low blow. I get it, but it's also it was a total deal breaker for us. Like, there's no way that we're denouncing Jesus. Like, no way. So we went to like a sort of a new agey thing, and it was like, we were doing it through something called Jewish Renewal. But here's another Jesus story. We were studying Passover. We're studying all the festivals, and you can't study Passover without talking about Yeshua. So we brought it up. And this woman, she was a rabbi, and she was so open-minded and hippy-dippy and open to everything. But that slammed the door shut.
How bizarre.
It's so bizarre.
It's like sacred cow lady. I thought you didn't have any.
Exactly. She's open, and she's like, you know what? There's some Jews for Jesus down the street. I think you should go there. I think that's where you belong. But this like conversion process is over. And we're like, oh shit, and Savea was a bit mad at me for bringing it up, but I felt compelled. I felt compelled. I'm like, we're studying Passover. Like, Passover is so rich with the story of course, the past in Egypt and all that stuff. Symbolism. But it's symbolic of Yeshua, of the Christ, what he went through, and the lamb whose bones are not broken, and the sacrificial lamb, and the Kohen, the priest used to put the sins of the people in on that atonement at that time, to atone for the sins of the people, and Jesus became that anyway. Like, it's just so rich. I had to bring it up, but that was another door closer. Yeah,
that's awesome. So, what, Brandon?
I was just gonna say, I've had plenty of those door closures myself. It's like, but have you seen Building 7? You know,
Which one was it? Building 7 or Building 6?
oh, well, Building 6 is the one that gets you kicked off of YouTube, apparently. So we won't even talk about that. I don't really look into that anymore, but Building 7's enough for me.
Is that Ground Zero? Are you talking about Ground Zero?
Yeah. Apparently there's another building that's even like more damning with evidence or something, but yeah.
Yeah, there's some things that they don't like. I'm really surprised sometimes at some of these whistleblowers that they're fine, they're not killed. I'm surprised. And then other things are very threatening to them for some reason. Like I was posting the whole pandemic about all kinds of the BS. I was calling it out. I had a platform, NDs for Truth, where I was talking to like-minded NDs because we were heavily censored. Naturopathic doctors were heavily censored during the pandemic. We weren't allowed to say anything about how to boost your immune system because it was out of our jurisdiction to deal with COVID. We're freaking naturopathic doctors. We deal with viruses all the time. If you, I know there's the whole camp of like viruses don't exist, but whatever. I don't necessarily want to go there right now. Yeah,
we get it.
Yeah. So
we can all agree it wasn't what they were trying to sell us. So we could just say that 2020.
Yeah, and I put all kinds of shit out there. I put shit about Candace Owens, and lots of really good quotes from conservative Blacks that were very beautiful. No problem. I put all kinds of shit out there. As soon as I posted anything encouraging about the trucker convoy that went on a couple of years ago in Canada, I was totally banned, shadow banned. Now I post anything, I don't get any likes or anything. I'm basically shadow banned because of that. I used to have these amazing conversations with 150 comments and people going at it and I was like, this is great conversation. And now I put, no matter what I put up, 0 because of that convoy. They didn't like that at all. So there's some things that they don't like, and there's things that they don't give a shit about.
And especially I think it has to do with timing. If you could talk about 2020 now more readily than you could when it was going on because they didn't want you to ruin their whole, scam.
Right. They needed to push the certain number of doses and get a certain percentage of the population inoculated. That's not even the right word. More like infested. Infested is a good word. Have you guys noticed that a lot of the drugs that are helpful for both the effects of the experimental shots and COVID itself, whatever the hell it is, are anti-parasitic?
Oh, that's interesting.
I think I'd heard that.
Hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, suramin.
Oh, yeah.
They're all anti-parasitics. They all treat conditions that are that are parasites.
Interesting.
And interestingly, Dr. Carrie Madej, you know who Carrie Madej is? Have you heard of her? She's a part of that group of doctors that are very vocal against what's going on, including Christiane Northrup and Sherry Tenpenny and Dr. Something Orlowski, brilliant pediatrician doctor from around New York or something.
I've actually spoken with Dr. Tenpenny. I was part of a roundtable discussion we got together. Yeah, she's really cool.
She's cool. She's brilliant.
In 2020.
Courageous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the other guy. But if you look up there, they're like 5 doctors, right? And they've had this thing going on for a while. And Carrie Madej is a part of that. And she has revealed a lot of things that when you look at the organisms from both the condition and the V's, they look like parasites. And like pulling these long things out of, I know like there's this clotting going on, but there's like some organisms involved in that. And they respond to anti-parasitics. Like there's improvement. So there's something parasitic in COVID, which is really so bizarre, very like sci-fi,
very bizarre.
Dark dystopian novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your ND related stuff, I do want to talk to you or ask you about your counsel thyself and holistic counseling stuff. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. So holistic counseling evolved from, okay, so 25 years ago, it was 1996, I got very sick. The first time with myasthenia gravis, I had two bouts with it. One was 8 years ago. The other one was 25 years ago. And I went to the Options Institute. That's run by the Kaufmans, Barry Neal Kaufman and Samaria Kaufman. They had a child who was severely autistic in the 70s. And they healed him by just being with him for 2.5 years, 24/7, no breaks, no vacation, no going to a movie, 24/7 for 2.5 years. They just mirrored him. Whatever he did, they did. If he spun a plate, they spun a plate. If he banged his head, they would bang their heads. And after 2.5 years, he came out with a near genius IQ, totally healed of autism. And what they were doing in the 70s is they were chaining kids together and they were shocking them and they were sticking them in the closet, and it was horrible. So they're like, there's no way we're doing that. And they developed this whole sort of inspired path of all kinds of amazing teachings from their son's miraculous healing. And they wrote a book called Sunrise. And there was a movie made about it, and they're kind of famous, like Barry Neal Kaufman is a famous author. He wrote "Happiness is a Choice, to Love is to Be Happy With," and I got to train with him, and I received one of his students, or what was called the Optiva Dialogue, which from which I evolved holistic counseling. That's why I'm telling you this story. So I was quite sick. I had paralysis. My arms were weak, and paralysis of my abdominal muscles, my legs. And I couldn't do a push-up. And so I had this dialogue done where I was, a bunch of questions are asked. So what are we dealing with? Oh, paralysis. What's that like for you? And after a series of questions, I was asked the question, I said, because I need to be perfect. That was the answer to something. And they said, what makes you think you need to be perfect? And that was the life-changing question. And I had a spontaneous healing from that.
What?
The chi rushed into my body because the question for me was the answer. I don't need to be perfect, but I never even thought about that before.
Wow.
I never thought about it, but it was obvious I didn't need to be perfect. And then I my muscles flowed with chi, and my eyes opened up, and I was there for a week, and I was like pushing the lawnmower up the hill, like mowing, like volunteering, mowing the lawn. And I was strong again. I was healed. Wow. So I was like, man, there is some good shit in uncovering belief systems. And
wow.
And over the last 25 years, I've developed it for practice with disease and naturopathic, and I've evolved it with the philosophy of naturopathic medicine and yoga and Taoism. It's not anything religious whatsoever, but it's this universal principle of what we talked about before, who we are as pure consciousness. Yes. And being so, we're absolutely unconditionally okay just as we are. There's nothing we need. We don't need any accolade. We don't need love. I know that sounds weird, but we can get attached to love, needing love. It's false. That's a trap. Community, being in health, like anything could become an attachment, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that Ram Dass actually said all methods are a trap. So it's like pretty.
Every method is a trap.
Every method is a trap. Now, as a child, what we can say, which I think is true, is children need love. Unless they're like in reincarnation of Buddha or something, or like Christ or Krishna, whatever, what have you. But the kid needs love. The kid needs attention. The kid needs to be cared for and listened to, and to be loved properly. And most kids don't get that. And whatever they don't get, they become attached to, because they say, oh, if only mom and dad would love me the way I feel I want to be loved, then I would be okay. that becomes an attachment that then the kid carries forward into life. And that's the thing that they suffer around. I'm not being loved. I'm not being given attention the way I need. It's a belief. It becomes a belief. And that's just the way the world works. It's the way it's set up. Too bad. Or perfect, exactly as it is. Whatever you want, however you want to say it. So I really totally sunk my teeth into the path of healing via addressing belief systems and the attached emotions. And so I teach a program for anybody. It's open to anybody, but it has traditionally been largely for naturopathic doctors, where I teach naturopathic doctors to do what I call the VIS dialogue, which is based on the Optiva dialogue that I received and that I learned through Barry Neil Kaufman, and then I have changed and evolved. Like if I was going to patent it, I have enough different, there's a lot different there than what I initially learned. So I teach practitioners to how to ask questions to help people heal in a way which is so profound. And in most cases, much better than the psychotherapy and the counseling and the regular therapy that people get out there. It's so deep because it's based on two winning principles. Number one, the truth is in the person. And number two, the practitioner, the truth doesn't. So actually, this is 1A and 1B. 1B is that the practitioner is not the one that brings the truth. They just ask the questions so that the person sees it within themselves. It's so effective. It's so effective.
Intuitive to me that it just like that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And in the program, there's also a physician heal thyself piece, because when it comes time to start doing the dialogue on others, where we're blocked in ourselves is a complete barrier to being able to do the dialogue in its free form.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see
so
that.
It's a very transformational program. It's a year long. There's 3 courses and there's 12 one-on-ones. 6 are mentoring and 6 are physician heal thyself. And it is really open to anybody that wants to, it's very transformational, wants to heal their own life and wants to like have a profession in it, alter their own practice, or just enter into the healing realm by doing this particular modality. So yeah, I have, my website is holistic, holistic-counseling with 1L.ca. And that you can learn all about your program, all about the program. I'm going to be hiking my prices pretty soon after the 4th of July to reflect the value that I understand is in the course. But until then, I'm honoring the pricing that's there now. And if somebody watches this a little bit after the fact, just drop your names. You saw it on the Over Sharon show. Oh, thank you. There you go. There you go. Nice share. Just drop, and I'll honor that lower pricing. I'll honor that is until the end. So yeah, I love this program. I've created it as a vessel to guide people through their pain and to become practitioners that embody the I am and that help people arrive at their release through the I am, through the unconditionality of their being. Because I found that there's some people I'm blown away by how much suffering there is out there. And people that you'd never think about, you'd never think they're suffering. Like they have it all together, right? Like, but when you get in there with them, the suffering is deep and they're in a lot of pain and they're totally messed up. But a lot of these people are coming for healing and also to be healers.
The wounded healer.
Yeah,
the wounded healer.
Exactly. Chiron. Are you familiar with Chiron? The wounded
Very
healer?
familiar with Chiron.
Yes. There you go.
Yes.
I was going to ask you, do you have any Libra energy in your chart? Because Sharon is a Libra sun sign. I'm a Libra ascending. And it seems that we're able to look at these ideas, not because of that, but it's a tendency that we're able to balance these different ideas. Like you said before, you believe everything basically,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I do have Pluto in Libra. It's a generational thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it's in a very special place. My Pluto is at the first degree of Libra, where the super galactic center is, and that's a even bigger black hole. So Pluto has of itself a little bit of a imploded kind of energy, black hole-y kind of energy. And to have Pluto right at the super galactic center, it's pretty intense. Of course, that is generational. But then with my ascendant, I didn't necessarily tell you this, but my ascendant is smack dab at the 27th degree of Sagittarius. Your ascendant is kind of like your destiny, what you're rising up towards to becoming, and also part of your how you appear to people. I have this appearance of this like imploded chest thing, and so that's kind of my destiny is tied into the black hole. And funny you asked about Libra. I have Pluto there at the super galactic center.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I love that idea, the course that you're talking about, because I feel like if you could heal yourself, that's the best way to share it with other people. That's kind of what I do. I wrote a book, almost 2 books so far myself, and I just talked a lot about my own things that I went through, and just sharing it with people, because I feel it's like the best example, I guess. But yeah, that's amazing. So you said it's a year long?
Yeah, it's about a year long. It starts in October. As you'll see there, it's like October, one of the last weekends of October.
I think one of those days.
Yeah, and then
1920.
We do the first course, the foundation. You start practicing. You start doing your own physician heal thyself, healing your own wounds by working with a course leader. At this point right now, I'm the course leader. Like I basically do all the one-on-ones. But as this program grows, I imagine I'll have to have some of the practitioners that I've trained help me out with that stuff. I won't be able to do it all. Yeah. And I hope it grows to that degree. And I hope it gets in the naturopathic schools, because the poor schools, oh my gosh, or the poor students that go to the schools, not the poor schools, because they're selling out big time.
They're not poor.
Yeah, and they're not, well, I mean, they don't have their shit together. It's just one big dysfunctional thing. And it would be nice if they embodied some of these principles of true holism. Because if you look at the philosophies of the philosophy of naturopathic medicine, the six tenets, it's basically a map to holistic medicine.
Yeah.
Treat the root cause, treat each person as an individual, treat the fundamental, I said that, work with the healing power of nature, doctor as teacher, it's incredibly holistic.
Right, as it should be.
So I have a wish, it's an unfulfilled wish, but it's like my wish for the Jews, my wish for the naturopathic colleges, to not be so afraid of looking like a witch doctor or having your own philosophy, to incarnate unto itself what we represent, not worrying about trying to gain credibility by emulating conventional medicine. Mm-hmm. Because we all know that conventional medicine for the most part sucks and doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
What's the frequency of the course? How often is it? Like once a week, a bunch, or
No, it's basically one weekend. It's part one, and then you
Tennessee.
Yes, it's in Tennessee.
Go there. Oh,
or
yes,
Zoom. Or
yes. Zoom. And you get to see the beautiful mountains. I wonder if I could show you this.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me make it bigger on our screen.
It's
on him.
We're in the valley. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Ah, man, so beautiful. Like I said, I just love Tennessee. I love the people. I love the vibes. I don't love all the bugs, but I appreciate the bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep you in the present moment. I was thinking of that yesterday. Bugs, mosquitoes keep you in the present moment.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
they keep your
true.
reflexes quick because there's these gnats that fly around your head and they look like they're flying around your head. And then every once in a while, one of them decides to directly dive bomb right into your eyeball. And so you have to be like, cha. Yeah. Sorry, what was I talking about before? I lost.
You're fine. I think we were just talking. Oh, you said the frequency of the class. It's a weekend.
Oh, yes.
Tennessee.
So there's one weekend. That's the first course. The foundations course is one weekend, Friday evening, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And then we start the healing thyself through Zoom. So you have 6 of those over the course of the year. And then there's a in-between course. It's called part 2. And there's a bunch of, review and quizzing and you can watch a whole bunch of live cases that I've done. It's very, very helpful. And then there's the third course, which is in person. It's 4 days long. And that happens in March. So that's it for the classes. And then you do the mentoring. So you record a live case of you working with someone. You bring it to me. I watch it with you, and I basically go over it and make suggestions. And then it can often turn into a physician heal myself thing, because I was like, okay, you're not asking what's stopping you here. You're not asking the question. That's the low hanging fruit. It's right there.
The elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's the elephant in the room. You're not asking about the elephant in the room. What's holding you back? Well, I didn't want to hurt their feelings. Is that something that you feel in general? You don't want to hurt people's feelings? Yeah. I'm like that all the time. All right, let's talk about that. It becomes a healing session.
I love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really great.
That's kind of, I'm in a kind of newish relationship. I guess it started around like September, October last year, but that's kind of how we treat our interactions, or we try to treat our interactions with each other when we get either like annoyed or whatever it is that happens. But generally overall it's really good. But it's the same kind of thing, like, why am I triggered in this instance? Like, what is it about me? Yeah,
right.
It's really very interesting. But I love this dynamic. Yeah, I gotta check it out some more.
Right. And remember the whole thing with the Hermes, the Trismegistus Hermetic philosophy, that everything is a half truth, right? So sometimes you just got to be mad because you're mad.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're totally like ravingly mad and foaming at the mouth, then you got to look at yourself too. But sometimes you get mad because you have the right to feel angry.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. We don't want to get too new agey with that stuff. Guys, I can tell you guys are not new agey, and neither am I, which is.
Yeah, I'm actually a Marine Corps veteran. I did 4 years active duty, so I know it's kind of hard, but tell by looking at me. And I also did stand-up comedy for 7 years, and I'm probably going to get back into it one of these days. I've been writing a bunch too, but
good for you.
So I'm all over the place.
That's amazing. Wow, that's very diverse. You could make some serious comedy material from your time in the Marines and your being a wedding DJ, I'm sure.
100%. Some of the stuff that I see, it's crazy.
Speaking of diverse, you are, Dr. Moshe, very diverse. So what are the many things that you do?
Naturopathic medicine, ultimate frisbee. I haven't played in a while. Golf, Kabbalah. I do, Moe-Joe cell technology.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Alternative energy, healing with frequencies, healing with vibrations. There's something that I've worked on for 20 years, which is called the Sphinx. I call it the Sphinx sphere, because it's basically I feel like I cracked this code of what the Sphinx. The Sphinx represents many things, but one thing that it represents is elements, like the rulerships of the planets that rule the zodiac signs. And by getting them to harmonize with each other, John Keeley actually mentions a lot about this, to resonate them together opens up this portal to the causal. And it's very healing. So I've been working on the Sphinx sphere. It's vibrational frequency stuff. Lately, I've been doing it almost just like a hobby thing with my daughter and my son. We 3D print rings in wax resin, Then we do the lost wax technique. So you build a tree with the rings are all in the tree, and then you pour in a plaster, then you melt out the wax, and then you pour in your metal, and you get the form of the ring.
Oh, wow.
Is it like an orgone device or something?
No, it's just jewelry. It's literally jewelry. But we're just sort of perfecting the technique right now, and the rings are coming out in super high detail. But we want to make magic rings. We're going to be casting at very powerful times in the cosmos where there's like lunar eclipses or solar eclipses. I actually made an amulet for the star Algol. Are you familiar with the star Algol, the head of Medusa in the constellation of Perseus?
Oh, wow. No.
It's one of the most powerful stars in the sky, and it's very protective. It's got a very, very protective energy. And I was selling them on Etsy, and I cast them at the most incredible time. I designed them, and it has the prayer and the symbol of Algol, and it's very, very beautiful. And I cast them right at the time when there was a Star of David in the sky, and the moon was right in conjunct with the star Algol and the head of Medusa. It was just a perfect moment. And so times like that, like wait for the right time to cast certain rings and imbue the gemstones that we'll put on them with healing energies and prayer. And so that's a fun thing I like to do.
Yeah.
Are you into crystals?
Yeah, like lightly. I'd say lightly throughout my life. I've been into crystals for sure.
Are you familiar with moldavite?
Yes.
It's one of these that's very rare. It's supposed
like
to be
from outer space or something.
Yeah,
like,
that's what they say. But it's
green glass kind of thing. Yeah.
And I just got here. I'm going to show this. I just got this piece of rainbow calcite yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love stuff like that. Like I love going around with the kids, like rock hounding, trying to find stuff like that. It's gorgeous. Yeah. It's a gorgeous piece. Another thing that I'm really into, because sort of out of necessity, the whole sovereignty thing. So we also want to be sovereign in terms of food, like not rely on, they're obviously trying to gut all the channels. So people are dependent on, Klaus Schwab's, cricket protein, bugs and stuff like that. Well, I got into electroculture. Do you know what electroculture is?
Yeah.
Wow, that is just powerful stuff. I wonder if I can show you.
Combining it with some of the stuff you already do, right? Moe-Joe cells and stuff, which I actually was wondering. I heard you talking about it with Chance yesterday, and you're telling a story about how you had him in a car and something, or he was telling a story about he had him in a car. What do they like physically? What do they look like? Or can you just like...
You want me to show you, like I could show you what a picture of the Moe-Joe cell looks like. You want, if I can just share my screen for a second.
Yeah.
Brandon will give you ability.
So this is one of my websites, moejocell.com.
Oh, you should have the
permission. Yeah, give us all your websites at some point. We'll ask you.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, sure. So I'm going to share the screen here. So so this is what it looks like. There's a sphere. There's a sphere within a sphere within a sphere within a sphere. The electricity is applied to the inner sphere and the outer sphere, and these two become neutral amplifiers. And what the cell actually looks like is this. This is polished. This is unpolished. They don't come polished. But one thing that we've discovered is it's like amazing for consciousness. Like this thing. When you get it filled with water and you get the electricity flowing, just 12 volts or 24 volts is enough. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Batteries, car batteries are perfect. And you can have it submerged in water, and it gives off this energy field of unification. So because there's electricity being passed through the outer sphere and the inner sphere, it creates a magnetic neutral opening to the causal in the center. So it emanates energy from the scalar waves, still magnetic light, the neutral center, what have you. And it's very healing, very beautiful. And it informs, it teaches us, or it reminds us, I should better say, the balance of the masculine and the feminine. Because the magic is not in the masculine or in the feminine,
but in
both
combined.
That's where the magic is.
So
yeah, so this is the Moe-Joe system.
Go ahead.
It's basically Moe-Joe cell, MOE-JOE-cell.com. That's where you could get them.
And is that somebody holding one, or
yeah, that's my fingers, I think.
So that's one version of it, and you were talking, and then the one above at the very top, that's another version of it, or a smaller version, or?
Well, there's basically a water charging kit. It's essentially the same thing. They just have slightly different holes, and so that you could fill it with water with the car kit, and it's easier to seal up. And the water kit, it has more holes to allow for the bubbles to circulate. So you're charging water. If you're just interested in the consciousness aspect of the cell, then you would want to probably just get the water charging kit. If you want to install it in your car, you want to get the car kit, but both can be used interchangeably. It's just a convenience of holes, like how many holes there are in them, you know?
Okay. Wow. So like, I mean, I'd heard you talk about it, but I never saw this. I never saw the website, never saw the,
yeah, I never really showed it. I appreciate you giving me a chance to do so.
Yeah, because I was like, what is this thing? I want to know what it looks like.
Yeah. It's really neat.
And so what's that little one he's holding right there?
Whoops. This is a bismuth. This one right here?
No,
or
not
was
that
it a
one.
bismuth core?
The top one. Oh, now it's gone. It was somebody holding a little like screw.
Yeah, that's a bismuth core. This is a bismuth core. So bismuth,
what does that mean? Okay.
Bismuth is a diamagnetic. It's one of the most diamagnetic substances that is the most readily available and easy to manage. Its melting point is really low, like lead. Like you could just take a regular blowtorch and melt it. And I pour it in a mold over this rod that goes right through and holds it together. So in the very center is this diamagnetic material, and diamagnetic materials they create a weak repulsional field. So they repel a magnetic field. And, you know, normally magnetism is, when we think of magnetism, we think of a magnet sticking to a fridge or something. That's ferromagnetism. So that's attraction. Mm-hmm. Whereas diamagnetism is repulsion.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you surround a thing that is repelled by a magnetic field, if you surround it by a magnetic field, it's surrounded and it has nowhere to go, but it implodes. It creates an implosional magnetic field.
Oh, wow.
That opens up to the other side of reality, that 0 point field that we're talking about.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's the idea in the Moe-Joe cell. Very cool stuff.
So I take it this does like allows for better fuel regulation, shall we say?
Yep.
That's awesome.
The best cars to gain fuel savings are the cars that have like the worst fuel mileage, like big American cars with not too much computer regulation, like that are more fuel efficient. Like if you had an old Chevy with like a big V6 or V8 with a carburetor, that would be the best car to install.
Okay, these are like the older stuff. Yeah,
older stuff, but also today, like if you're driving a big Yukon, you know, like this massive, they can get upwards of like 20 to 50% fuel mileage savings.
Okay.
Whereas if you're driving a little Japanese car and you're getting already like 30 miles a gallon, then it's very hard to tweak the computer.
Okay.
But you still get a boost in performance, and you get like an enhanced effect in the car, and you get like the whole car is in the field of the Moe-Joe cell when you do that.
And then it's like what Topher was talking about with the whole like, it just brings like a kind of like a joyful energy around you, or just like a peaceful, joyful, like positive energy.
Yes, it can. However, it's a powerful field. And if you bring your field, like let's say you're not in a good state or you're not
Okay.
happy or something,
Yeah.
then that the cell will reflect that back and it
Okay.
will amplify that. So
Oh, wow.
it does teach one to be responsible with one's thoughts and feelings and stuff
Mm,
like that.
like don't be yelling at people in the car when you have this installed.
Exactly,
rage.
like road rage. Don't
No
road
road rage.
rage somebody with the Moe-Joe cell install.
That's funny. So that's the car side. If you could scroll down just a little bit to see the other one was for what? A water kit. So like what would anyone like me or someone, if they bought this just
Yeah.
regular, how would it be used?
Well, you would assemble it, and you would ideally get a jug. They sell them at Target, like a gallon jug, like a fish bowl. You have a hole drilled in the bottom with like a diamond drill bit and a drill press. Maybe you could go to a shop or something and get that done, unless you have that equipment. And then you install the cell. You fill it with water. Best kind of water would be spring water. You could add a little bit of electrolyte, although it's okay to add a little electrolyte, like sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide would be your best two electrolytes to use. And that increases the flow of current, which increases the field effect. But you can use very, very subtle energy, very subtle. It doesn't have to be like all these bubbles and stuff. If you're doing it for consciousness, I like some current to flow. I like there to be some flow, but it doesn't have to be like what you would want probably in the car. Although Topher is like a purist. He wants it all, or it's all the energy principle, not the gas, But some people have done just the gas principle and they've gotten pretty good results with that. But I agree that there is a energy principle too. So then you would just like, I have this video here where we're just standing around, and I wonder if I go like this, can you see this video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it shows how it assembles, and you can watch this video from this.
What do you feel?
No, great sense of peace.
Can you hear that? Because I
Yeah.
didn't share my sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just says I feel a great sense of peace, and there's different people just standing meditating in the field. That's all. You just plug in your battery. The positive goes on. You could play with it either on the outside or the inside. I actually am doing the positive on the inside and the negative on the outside of the battery. But you could do it the other way. And you just meditate. You put your hand, like you see, that's the jar, like the 1 gallon jar, and it's filled with water. And the water might discolor a little bit, but that's okay. It's just got little bits of iron floating around, maybe some nickel. Don't drink a lot of it because it could have nickel in it with the stainless steel. But
you're able to drink it too?
Well, if you were going to drink it, then I would recommend you take a couple of drops in a bigger vessel and you just shake it up. Okay. And then the energy principle is transferred to the water.
Okay.
So and that could be very healing, but it's also healing. Like you'll put your hands on the glass and then you'll just be like, you can feel like you're drawn into a deeper dimensional reality.
Oh, wow.
Pretty wild stuff.
That is.
I would be very intentional with prayer to, only for love, nothing else coming through. Just be very clear with that. You'd be fine. I mean, you're not using it for any like crazy shit. So you'd be fine. No worries there. Yeah.
So that's a long story, but you had to have come up with this for a reason, and like the idea of it and the idea of making it this like consciousness energetic healing device. That's like super fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it started, I realized that I'm archetypally, like, I don't even know what to call myself, but it's almost like I take something and I run with it. I kind of improve it, or I take it into some other way. Like the Optima dialogue I made into the V's dialogue for holistic counseling. I took the technology, the Joe cell. I learned it from Joe from Australia. He had like a cylinders within cylinders, and I went right away in my mind to the spheres. That's all I did with it. That's all I did. It's very simple. I just said I want this to be spherical, and the spherical cells are different from the other cells. They have a more pure field. It's like a more perfect field. Yeah, and then honestly, I wanted to run my car on water, but then in charging, I was like, whoa, this feels incredible. What is this feeling I'm feeling? And then from that, I derive the understanding of what's going on in the fields.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I want to be able to see your face again, so I don't.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, I could stop my share.
Don't stop sharing, just stop sharing. No.
Yeah. So bring that beat back. Come on, bring that beat back.
Yeah, exactly.
So go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, I want to share one more thing. I'm going to share the screen one more time. I just want to share one more website here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, perfect.
And it's sort of like an umbrella website. It's my ministry. It's Kingdom in you.org. So you can see, like you asked me, like all the things I do. I basically put a lot of the things that I do here. My book, Kabbalah book. I have a Messianic Kabbalah website.
Oh.
This is my Kabbalah book I mentioned. This is my naturopathic book. This is NDs for Truth that I did. And then Electroculture, Moe-Joe Cell, Songs of Solomon. It's a song album I wrote. I also do music and stuff like that. And then just teaching, and that's it. So I just wanted to share that, kingdominyou.org.
I love that.
Oh, that symbol.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, it's cool. I love it.
Beautiful.
It's cool. Alrighty, good. Yeah, I'm feeling like my energies are winding down a little bit.
Yeah.
I love connecting with the both of you. I feel like it's been a blast, and I would be happy to do it again at some point if you feel so inclined.
Oh yeah, we would too.
Totally. Yeah, we usually keep around 2 hours, so that's perfect. We're right over the 2-hour mark. So we were going to start wrapping anyway. So you felt it. You felt our energy. You already knew.
Yeah. You could just feel like, all right, this is a sort of feeling of resolution right now. 10 of cups, a lot of good vibes.
Yeah, thanks, man. I was born in the 70s as well, even though it's hard to tell. I was born in 76, so I totally get your vibe, man. It's great. A lot of things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I learned a lot about this. So I know Sharon has had a great time. I could already tell.
Yes.
Great.
Awesome.
Me too. Very much.
Give a final shout out to the chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We love you so much. Caribe Root. She wants me to write a comic, and she's going to help me do it. Like a comic strip and illustrate it. So yes, do it. Thank you, Joe, Joker's Redemption, for hanging out all the way from Germany. What's up, Zeralath? We'll see you guys later. If you want any more of the Over Sharon, just go to morelawsmoreproblems.com. That's my website that I've had for 10 years now. All kinds of stuff there. Click on the Over Sharon tab, and you can get this podcast in audio form or right here on YouTube, whatever's better for you. Is there anything else you want to plug or say before you get out of here?
No, I mean, if somebody wanted to connect with me, they could connect through any one of those websites. Just contact me, Kingdom in You, or the holistic-counseling.ca, Moe-Joe Cell, whatever. And I'll be happy to connect with you. Especially I am looking to have more people in my program this year. So there's an invitation there. If you feel drawn, like you like the idea of doing the holistic counseling, I'll be happy to train you. And that's it. I just a lot of gratitude to both of you. I really enjoy meeting kindred spirits, talking about these deep topics that are very nourishing to discuss. The chi flows in deep ways when we discuss these things. I love it. It's great.
Yes. I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
Oh, all right. Well, what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That once you start over Sharon,
then you totally stop being a Karen.
That's right. So share on.
Yep, sure on everybody. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.
That's
Well, actually, we'll see
great.
you in 2 weeks. Sorry, we're taking next week off because of the holiday, my born day, and all kinds of stuff. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Take care.
Ciao.
Take care. Ciao, ciao.
All right. We are done on YouTube.